Buckingham Palace was silent until Prince William discovered the truth. Deep inside a locked drawer, hidden beneath years of dust and deception, he found something that stopped his heart cold. A secret Camilla never wanted revealed. It wasn't just jewelry, it was a betrayal sealed in velvet. The discovery ignited a storm the royal family couldn't contain. What was Camilla hiding in Princess Diana's jewelry box? And why did it threaten the crown itself? The Forgotten Door. It was a gray Thursday morning, September 21st, 2023, when Prince William found himself wandering through the quiet corridors of Buckingham Palace's West Wing. The wing was known among staff as the sleeping side, a part of the palace rarely visited since Queen Elizabeth II's passing. As he passed a dim corridor, he noticed something odd. A single wooden door, older than the rest, but with a new silver lock gleaming faintly under the dusty light. There were no portraits, no staff nearby, not even cameras. It looked deliberately hidden. William stopped. The air felt heavier here, stale, untouched. He placed a hand on the door's frame and noticed faint scratch marks, as if someone had tried to open it before. He tugged at the handle, but it didn't move. The lock was firm, too modern for the door's century-old frame. A chill ran through him. Every corridor in the palace had surveillance coverage, yet this one was strangely bare. No CCTV, no guard rotation, no listed maintenance on record. His instincts told him something wasn't right. Later that evening, when most of the staff had retired for the night, William returned. It was 11:38 p.m., and the halls were silent except for the soft echo of his steps. From the security office, he had quietly requested a duplicate master key set, claiming he needed access to old storage records. The third key on the ring clicked softly into the lock, and the mechanism gave way with a metallic sigh. He pushed the door open slowly. A faint draft brushed past him, carrying the scent of old wood and something faintly floral, like preserved roses. The room was dark, except for a sliver of moonlight cutting across the floor. As William stepped inside, his eyes adjusted to the shadows. This wasn't storage, it was deliberate. Shelves lined the walls, covered in boxes, frames, and old cloth. Dust lay thick in some corners, yet the air felt recently stirred, as if someone had been here not long ago. His heartbeat quickened. Whatever this room was, it had been kept from sight on purpose. And as his eyes settled on the nearest table, he saw something that stopped him cold. A framed photograph of Princess Diana, carefully polished, her smile frozen in time. William's breath caught in his throat. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but he couldn't. This wasn't random clutter. It was personal, intentional. He turned on a small lamp resting on the table, and light flooded across the space. The shadows pulled back, revealing more boxes, each marked in handwriting he didn't recognize. The deeper he looked, the clearer it became. This room wasn't forgotten at all. Someone had been protecting it, and what it contained would shake the monarchy to its core. Inside the room. The lamp's glow revealed everything. The air was stale, yet somehow maintained, as if someone came here regularly, to clean, to preserve. Rows of boxes sat neatly stacked on wooden shelves. Each bore a label marked with initials, DS, CIS, Case, and dates ranging from 1980 to 1997. William reached for one at eye level, labeled DS Personal Effects, 1995. Inside were newspaper clippings, letters, and old Polaroids, snapshots of his mother, Princess Diana, in her charity work and private moments. Whoever had assembled this collection knew her life intimately. On the far side of the room, a small cabinet stood open. Inside, William saw personal letters in neat envelopes, all addressed to Charles. He reached for one, but stopped. His hand trembled. These were his mother's private letters to his father. Alongside them were silver-framed photos, one of Diana with Prince Harry, another from July 1991 during their trip to India. But what caught his eye was a velvet box sitting perfectly centered on the shelf, spotless among the dust. He opened it slowly and froze. Inside lay Diana's pearl necklace, the same one she wore during her 1996 visit to Washington, D.C. William's chest tightened. He knew this piece. It had been logged in the Royal Archives and later photographed in Camilla Parker Bowles's collection after the coronation in 2023. How had it found its way here in this hidden chamber beneath his family's home? His pulse quickened as he stepped back, scanning the room again. This wasn't just memorabilia, it was curation. Someone had deliberately chosen what to keep, what to hide. Each item felt like a piece of his mother's story, stolen, rearranged, and stored away. He turned toward the center table. A thick journal lay open, its last entry dated April 15, 2020, written in elegant cursive. The signature read, C.P. William didn't need to guess twice. The handwriting matched his stepmother's. His stomach sank. This wasn't remembrance, it was ownership. And for the first time in years, the composed Prince of Wales felt his control slipping. A floorboard creaked behind him. William spun around. A faint shadow moved across the hallway. Someone else had been here before him. As he turned off the lamp and stepped into the corridor, one thought consumed him. If Camilla had built this secret space, what else had she taken from his mother's past? The next time he entered, he would bring proof. But what he didn't expect was that the truth waiting inside would cut far deeper than stolen heirloom. Camilla's shadow looms over the collection. When William returned the next morning, it was early, 7:12 a.m., September 22, 2023. The palace was waking, but the West Wing remained eerily still. He unlocked the door again, this time with purpose. Sunlight slipped through the window, illuminating the room fully for the first time. And there, above the central table, he saw what he'd missed before. A large mirror board pinned with photographs, dozens of them, showing Diana and Camilla placed side by side like some grim comparison. Each photo was clipped with meticulous care. Newspaper cutouts, public appearances, candid shots. In some, Diana's eyes were circled in red marker. In others, notes were scrawled in the margins. Media shift, 1989. Public sympathy curve. Image recovery, 2005. It wasn't admiration. It was analysis. William's blood ran cold. This wasn't a tribute. It was strategy. His mother's memory had been studied, dissected, and used. He whispered aloud, almost to himself, "This is her blueprint." A sound startled him, the faint click of shoes. A palace guard, Sergeant Hollis, appeared at the doorway. His face drained of color the moment he saw the photos. "Your Royal Highness, this shouldn't be here," he stammered. Before William could respond, another figure entered, a maid, pale and trembling. "Sir," she whispered, "we were told never to mention this room." William stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Told by whom?" Her eyes darted toward the framed photographs, then back to him. "It belongs to her," she said softly. "Her Majesty, the Queen." The room seemed to close in around him. The weight of betrayal pressed on his chest like stone. He turned to the wall where the pearls glimmered faintly under the morning light. Camilla hadn't simply inherited Diana's role, she had archived her, preserved her memory like a relic she could control. The thought was unbearable. William clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "Not anymore," he murmured. For the first time in decades, the future king felt the same defiance that once burned in his mother's eyes. William left the room in silence, but his mind was in chaos. The evidence was undeniable. Camilla had hidden and possibly stolen Diana's most personal belongings. The secret shrine was more than obsession. It was possession. By nightfall, William's anger would no longer be a secret. The next time he opened that door, it wouldn't be to explore. It would be to expose. And the storm he was about to unleash would shake the royal family to its core. Objects of obsession. That evening, September 23, 2023, William returned to the secret room for what he knew would be the last time before taking action. The moment he stepped inside, the stale air seemed heavier, charged with tension. The lamp's light cast sharp shadows on the walls, the same walls that had seen far too much. He began searching deliberately now, opening drawers, moving stacks of envelopes, and uncovering what looked like a hidden compartment under the writing desk. The compartment was locked, secured by a tiny gold latch. He pulled at it once, twice. Nothing. Finally, with a small metal letter opener from the desk, he forced it open. Inside was a second velvet box, smaller than the one that had held his mother's pearls. This one was wrapped in tissue paper and sealed with red wax. His pulse quickened as he peeled the paper back and lifted the lid. Inside were 3 items: a delicate bracelet engraved G and F, July 1981, a folded letter in Diana's handwriting, and another note written in a hand he instantly recognized, Camilla Parker Bowles. The sight hit him like a blow. He had read about this bracelet in interviews and books. It was the gift Charles had given Camilla days before his wedding to Diana, the one that symbolized betrayal. For William, finding it here, inside Diana's personal jewelry box, was unbearable. He unfolded the first letter, a short note from Diana to Charles dated August 14, 1981. It read, "I saw what you gave her. I understand now the ink had smudged, as if by tears." Beneath it, Camilla's note was simple and cruel. "Some things never lose their value." William slammed the box shut, unable to breathe. This was not nostalgia. It was intrusion. His mother's private pain, mixed with Camilla's arrogance, stored together as if part of some perverse trophy collection. The thought of his mother's jewelry, sacred reminders of her life, being used this way, burned through him. He placed the box on the desk, his voice trembling as he whispered, "You've crossed every line." For a long moment, he stood there motionless, grief and fury warring inside him. Then he picked up the bracelet and walked out. It was no longer hidden. It was evidence. By dawn, September 24th, the palace was alive with whispers. William had been seen leaving the West Wing with a small black box in hand. The staff didn't know what it meant, but they could feel the change in the air. Something had shifted, something irreversible. While the world outside prepared for another royal engagement, behind the walls of Clarence House, a confrontation was already brewing. And this time, William wasn't walking in as a prince. He was walking in as Diana's son. The days that follow. For the next 3 days, William maintained his public schedule. He smiled for cameras, shook hands, delivered speeches, but every gesture felt mechanical. Behind the facade, he was quietly gathering proof, He confided in two trusted aides, both longtime palace staff who had known his mother personally. He laid out photos, letters, and the recovered bracelet on the table of his private office at Kensington Palace. One aide whispered, "If this becomes public, it'll destroy her reputation." William's reply was simple. She destroyed it herself. Meanwhile, inside Clarence House, Camilla sensed something was wrong. Her senior aide, Lady Alice Bennet, noticed how palace staff avoided eye contact, how silence replaced the usual chatter at breakfast. Rumors swirled that William had uncovered something tied to Diana's estate. Camilla tried to brush them off, but unease gnawed at her. That night, she called King Charles III, who was in Scotland, and told him she felt an undercurrent of hostility. Charles, unaware of the full situation, reassured her, "You've faced worse storms, darling." But this was different. By September 27th, palace communications began intercepting leaks, whispers of a hidden room, and archived artifacts. William's aides had been careful, but too many staff had seen too much. Royal reporters began making subtle inquiries. The Daily Mail ran an unsigned teaser. Rumors of hidden royal memorabilia spark internal tension. The phrase royal memorabilia was a polite disguise for what insiders knew was far more sinister. William knew the story could explode at any moment, yet he wasn't ready for public war. Not yet. In private, his anger only deepened. He would stand by the window of his office late into the night, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "She used my mother's life like a collection," he told an aide on September 29th, his voice breaking for the first time. Every lie she told about peace was just possession. His decision was made. There would be no leaks, no press, no silence, only confrontation, face to face. And the chosen battleground would be Clarence House itself. By October 1st, 2023, the royal calendar listed a private family meeting at Clarence House, officially described as a discussion of heritage archives. But behind closed doors, every insider knew it was something else. A reckoning. Camilla had been told to expect a brief visit from William. She assumed it was courtesy. She didn't know he carried evidence. The fire that once burned quietly beneath the palace's golden ceilings was about to ignite, and it would leave no royal untouched. The confrontation at Clarence House. At 2:15 p.m. October 1st, 2023, the doors of Clarence House's drawing room closed with a heavy echo. William stood tall, the velvet box and photographs on the table before him. Camilla sat by the window, teacup untouched, her expression guarded. The air was thick with tension, the kind that only years of unspoken history can create. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then William broke the silence. "Why did you touch her things?" His voice was low but sharp, cutting through the air like glass. Camilla blinked slowly, buying time. "You misunderstand," she said. "That room, it was meant as a tribute, a memorial space for reflection." William's jaw clenched. "A tribute?" he shot back. "You stored her letters, her pearls, her pain, next to your gifts from my father. That's not remembrance. That's control." Her lips tightened. "You don't understand the pressure of history," she replied coldly. "Sometimes, preserving the past is the only way to live with it." William's voice rose. "You don't preserve a ghost. You exploit it." The staff in the hallway could hear the raised voices, muffled but unmistakable. One aide later described it as less a conversation, more a courtroom. William laid out the evidence, the bracelet, the notes, The photographs. Camilla's face paled as her eyes fell on the bracelet she thought was lost decades ago. "You shouldn't have gone in there," she hissed. "That was private." William leaned forward. "Private? It's my mother's life. You had no right." Her composure cracked for the first time. "Your mother destroyed this family?" she snapped. "I only kept what she left behind." Silence hung for several seconds. William's gaze hardened. "No," he said quietly. "You kept what you could control. But not anymore." With that, he gathered the items, turned his back, and walked out. The door closed behind him with finality. Inside, Camilla sat frozen, her teacup trembling in her hands. For the first time since entering the royal family, she realized that her power, built on image and manipulation, had finally met something stronger: truth. As word of the confrontation spread through palace corridors, one question dominated the whispers. How would King Charles III respond? Torn between his wife and his son, between past guilt and present duty, his silence could no longer protect both. Within days, advisors would push him toward an impossible decision: to defend Camilla's reputation or to preserve Diana's legacy. And the choice he made would determine not only the monarchy's future, but the soul of the crown itself. The King's Dilemma. When the news reached King Charles III in Balmoral Castle on the evening of October 3, 2023, the silence in his study was deafening. His private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, delivered the message with careful neutrality. "Your Majesty, the Prince of Wales and Her Majesty the Queen Consort have had a severe disagreement." Charles set his pen down. He knew immediately this wasn't just a family argument. It was the fracture he had feared since 1997, the ghost of Diana returning through his son. He spent 4 hours alone in his office that night, pacing under the glow of a single lamp. On one side stood loyalty to his wife, Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman who had endured decades of scrutiny. On the other stood his son, Prince William, carrying the moral weight of his mother's memory. Charles had rebuilt his monarchy around stability, but this secret room, this evidence, threatened to unravel everything. At 10:06 p.m., he finally called Camilla. Her voice was trembling, defensive. "He broke into my private quarters," she said. "He's weaponizing grief." By morning, Charles summoned his inner circle. Present were Alderton, Lady Susan Hussey, and Sir Edward Young. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. Advisors were split. Some urged Charles to make a public show of unity, to protect the Queen Consort at all costs. Others warned that the public's lingering affection for Diana would make silence impossible. "If even half of this becomes public," one aide said, "it'll be 1997 all over again." Charles rubbed his temples, whispering, "It's always 1997. He left the meeting without resolution. The next day, Charles invited William to a private lunch at Clarence House. It lasted 45 minutes, but no agreement was reached. William presented photographs, undeniable proof of the hidden room. Charles's face fell as he saw Diana's letters, her pearls, her photographs side by side with Camilla's personal notes. He pushed the papers away, whispering, "Good God, what have we done?" William stood, calm but resolute. "You didn't do this," he said quietly, "but you can end it." For Charles, the meaning was clear: protect Camilla, and he risks losing his son forever. By October 5th, Charles's indecision had become its own crisis. Within the palace, whispers turned into strategy. Some courtiers argued that protecting Camilla meant saving the monarchy's structure. Others warned that shielding her would destroy public trust entirely. Outside the gates, journalists had begun to circle, sensing blood in the water. The secret wouldn't hold much longer, and neither would the family's fragile unity. The next move wouldn't come from the throne. It would come from the press. The press smells blood. On October 7, 2023, the first leak hit the tabloids. The Daily Mirror ran a small headline: "Mystery Room Found in Palace, Linked to Diana Artifacts?" The article was cautious, filled with anonymous sources, but the damage was done. By 9 a.m., every major outlet, from the BBC to Sky News, was demanding comment. The palace remained silent, but inside the media circles, one image began circulating: a grainy photo of Diana's pearl necklace resting in Camilla's private vault. The photo's metadata read September 2023. Public outrage was immediate. Hashtags like #Justice for Diana and #CamillaGate trended across Twitter, X, and Instagram within hours. Royal biographers resurfaced old quotes, drawing eerie parallels between Diana's suffering and the current crisis. "It's as if her ghost is speaking through her son," one columnist wrote. Social media exploded with speculation. Some believed the image was fake. Others claimed it came from an insider loyal to William. By midday, polls showed 62% of the British public wanted an investigation into the hidden memorial. Inside the palace, chaos reigned. Camilla's press secretary, Fiona McCarthy, begged for a statement of denial. "We say it's a misunderstanding," she urged. But Charles refused. He knew denial would only inflame the fire. William, meanwhile, maintained silence. Every reporter who called Kensington Palace received the same line: no comment. But silence became its own message. The public saw it not as restraint, but as quiet confirmation. Every hour that passed tightened the noose around Camilla's image. By October 9th, the tabloids grew bolder. The Guardian published excerpts from anonymous staff interviews describing a secret room filled with the late princess's possessions. One quote read, "It looked more like an obsession than a tribute." Across London, talk shows debated whether Camilla had violated royal ethics. Protesters gathered outside Buckingham Palace, holding photos of Diana. The monarchy's media walls, once impenetrable, were crumbling. And as the headlines grew darker, William's fury began giving way to something else: resolve. The scandal had become unstoppable. Inside the royal residences, phones rang non-stop. Outside, reporters camped beneath palace gates. Camilla avoided public appearances, while Charles cancelled 2 scheduled events. Advisors called it containment, but William saw it as justice. Still, he knew that to end this cleanly, he had to remind the world of the story behind it, the one that started decades earlier, when his mother's trust was betrayed. And so, the next chapter began with memory, flashbacks, and history. For the world, the story began again in the 1980s, when Lady Diana Spencer was just 19 years old and met the future king. But for William, it began much later, the night he saw his mother cry behind closed doors at Kensington Palace, whispering one sentence he never forgot: "She'll never let me go." Now, in 2023, that echo returned. As the press replayed old interviews, the past came roaring back to life. Diana's words from 1995 haunted the headlines: "There were 3 of us in this marriage." News programs re-aired footage from Diana's iconic panorama interview. Commentators revisited her rivalry with Camilla, from the fateful bracelet gift in July 1981 to the confrontation at Annabelle's birthday party in 1989, to the diary photo found during the honeymoon on the royal yacht Britannia. Each image told a story of betrayal and heartbreak. The public, now armed with new context, saw the hidden room not as a mystery, but as a continuation of the same obsession. William couldn't escape the memories. He was 15 years old when Diana died in 1997, walking behind her coffin with his brother Harry, watched by 2.5 billion people worldwide. That grief, buried for decades, now resurfaced in every headline. This wasn't just about his stepmother's collection, it was about a pattern of erasure, the slow rewriting of his mother's legacy. In private, he told aides, "She built her image from the ashes of my mother's pain." Not anymore. The public sided with him. Editorials called William his mother's avenger, and his restraint dignified fury. Camilla's approval ratings dropped by 40% in 1 week. For the first time since her coronation, even longtime supporters questioned her judgment. The monarchy, already fragile after Elizabeth II's death in 2022, faced a crisis of conscience. But as the world took sides, William wasn't celebrating. For him, this wasn't vengeance. It was duty, to restore what was stolen. By October 15th, the internal damage was undeniable. The public saw the monarchy divided. The staff saw its heir transformed. William had made his choice. And soon, the king would have to make his. The hidden room's door would close forever, but not before one final act sealed its fate. What began as a discovery in the shadows would end in the light of royal authority. The reckoning had arrived. Fallout and legacy. On October 17, 2023, a quiet but historic order was signed inside Buckingham Palace. The document, labeled Heritage Preservation Directive No. 27 inches, was personally authorized by King Charles III. It stated, "All personal effects and artifacts related to the late Diana, Princess of Wales, shall be retained under neutral royal archival custody. No member of the family shall have private access." With that single decree, Camilla's hold over Diana's legacy ended. The hidden room was sealed permanently. Camilla was not stripped of her title, but her influence vanished overnight. She canceled all public appearances due to health concerns. Within 48 hours, her personal staff were reassigned. Insiders described her as isolated, angry, and deeply humiliated. Meanwhile, William personally oversaw the transfer of Diana's possessions to the Royal Archives at Windsor. On October 20th, he made one private visit to the sealed room. He placed his mother's pearls, the same ones from Washington, 1996, into a royal vault under lock and seal. Charles's internal memo to staff was short but solemn. "The integrity of remembrance must never be compromised by personal ambition," it read. Even within palace walls, it was understood as both a statement and a warning. William's aides said he spent that evening alone in the chapel at St. James's Palace, lighting a single candle for his mother. The monarchy had survived another scandal, but the scars were permanent. For William, justice had been done, but peace remained distant. Outside, the world moved on. The tabloids found new stories, new scandals, but within the heart of the royal family, something fundamental had changed. The West Wing door remained locked, its key destroyed. And somewhere deep in the palace, the echo of Diana's legacy lingered, unbroken, unowned, and finally free. For William, that was enough. The monarchy had been reminded, you can hide history, but you can never bury truth. As the palace struggles to recover, one truth remains unshaken. Prince William has vowed to protect his mother's legacy, no matter the cost. The jewelry box may be closed forever, but the questions it raised will haunt Camilla for the rest of her reign. Power can hide secrets, but not forever. Diana's memory lives on, untouchable and unforgotten. And now, her son has ensured that no one will ever desecrate it again.